scrutiny protocol, Adrian. Oh, by the way, if anyone's wanting to leave, you may.
Me.
No, you can't. You can't. So, no, that's Adrian on 10. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I don't propose to say too much in relation to this report. Members will be familiar with the Executive Scrutiny Protocol. It's come back for, I think it's second review, and in consultation with the Chair, there was one additional point that the Chair wished to insert in this protocol, which was to require that all IT strategies form part of the work programme for the Finance Scrutiny Select Committee. So that's what I've added to the draft before you tonight. Subject to any other comments, the protocol will then go to Cabinet for approval. So that's what I was proposing to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lee.
Can I just check what we mean by IT strategies? Do we really mean strategies, or do we mean projects or significant projects? What's the intention here? Because our strategy is fairly clear and good, but high level. Do we really mean that, or do we mean we want significant projects? I mean, I'm just thinking this is probably off the back of Agile, isn't it? So what is it we want here? Because if we say it's a strategy, we want to scrutinise, that's one thing. But if we're saying projects, or what are we saying, implementations, or, just clarity.
I'll defer to the Chair because it was the Chair's request, but my understanding of it was that it was policies and strategies rather than projects. If individual projects you wish to have come to the Finance Scrutiny Select Committee, which is the appropriate Scrutiny Select Committee for them, there's no reason why you couldn't ask for those to be brought forward at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Adrian. I actually wanted it on there so that all IT was looked at throughout the Borough Council, because IT is going to take the place over in the next 10 years. We've got AI coming railroading down the line, and I just think that it ought to be discussed somewhere and have a formal place for it to go, because I don't think it's acknowledged enough, and it's a really important part of this council. And we could see 10 people working for the council and quite a lot of computers. So I think we need to have a generalist sort of look at IT in the next few years and keep an eye on it. Did everyone agree with that? Yeah, you're happy with the protocol. I'll propose it, and is there a seconder? Thank you, Dennis. And have I got general agreement? Great, well done. Right, information rights requests. This is a really interesting one. Although it doesn't appear to be. Adrian will convince you.
I like a challenge, Chair. Just really a few points I wanted to draw out this report by way of context. The first one really is to say that we brought this report for you tonight so that you can see our performance in relation to information rights, but also as an opportunity to draw out really some key developments in how information rights requests, whether they're through FOI, EAR or subject access requests, are changing, and the impact that's having on how we manage them. Because you'll see from the report that the number of requests that we are receiving for information is really going up noticeably. 3 years ago, I think we had about 720 odd information requests during the course of the year. Last year that had gone up to 1,223. This year we'll have more than that, and there are a number of reasons for that. We're seeing generally people are more willing to exercise their rights, and that's a good thing. It's important people understand the rights they've got in relation to their data. So we're seeing an increase in that. We're seeing an increase in the number of requests from certain organisations who want to get information from us. And we're also seeing information rights requests forming part of a, when we see a complaint, for example, about a particular matter that we're dealing with, often we will see information rights requests accompany that. So as members, you'll see we've got the a decision attached in relation to a planning matter. Frequently in relation to contentious planning matters, we see accompanying applications for FOI and for EIR requests that go with them, and that increases the burden on the council generally in dealing with those. And it's perfectly legitimate for pressure groups or for residents to use information rights requests as part of a perhaps campaign's too strong a word really, but when there's a challenge to what we are doing, we often see these requests accompany them. Like I say, it's perfectly legitimate, so it's no criticism. I'm not criticising those people that make the requests. Absolutely legitimate. It's just more reflection of the time it takes to deal with these. Alongside seeing an increase in the number of requests we're getting, it's caused us to reflect on how we manage the requests that we have, because for a number of years we've managed this through devolving the responsibility to deal with the requests to individual services. So whether it's planning or environmental health or building control or finance, where the request relates to a particular service, each service will have coordinators who will deal with that request. We don't have a centralised information governance officer to deal with the requests that we receive. And with the increase in requests, we're seeing an additional burden on particular services. It goes across the council, but looking at the number of requests that we get, there's been a particular increase in requests in relation to planning and ones that go to finance. So those two services are bearing the burden of the number of requests that we receive. And like I say, because they often accompany very contentious planning applications, the same person who's dealing with the planning application will also be dealing with information rights requests that go with it. So that increases the burden on those officers. So it's caused us to reflect on how we manage requests and whether there is justification to consider having a dedicated information governance officer to coordinate requests. We've done some other work separately, which we've mentioned in the report, to streamline the management of requests. So we've done some process engineering work to give us a more streamlined service. But in the report, we are inviting your comments on whether or not we need to have a dedicated resource. The final point I was going to make was our performance. We're hovering between about 75 and 80% in terms of responding to requests within the statutory deadline. The Information Commissioner is looking for authorities to reach 90%. So we're falling below the target set by the Information Commissioner. And if we want to improve that target, we need to do something to manage the requests differently, in our view. Hence why we've brought this paper to you tonight for your thoughts on that. Like I say, fundamentally, the challenge we are seeing now is the number of requests are going up year on year, substantially year on year, actually, over the past couple of years. And we need to think carefully about how we manage those in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark Hood.
Got a couple of questions. If we've got a statutory target, is there a financial penalty that can be held against us, and does that financial penalty outweigh the cost of a dedicated freedom of information officer? My first question.
The Information Commissioner does have power to levy fines, significant fines, against public authorities. What the Commissioner has said recently, and they first trialled this a few years ago, was they are not minded to impose fines against local councils, because ultimately we will be paying that through residents' money. So that doesn't feel comfortable for them to do that. That doesn't mean they haven't got other powers that they might use against us were we to fall below their targets, and they have taken action against some authorities for failure to meet their performance targets, because they publish them all on their website. So I think in the report we've outlined, just let me find the paragraph for you. It's from paragraph 8 in the risk assessment. We've outlined what the powers of the Information Commissioner are. And also reflecting the point I made about how they're not looking to fine authorities, which is good, because the maximum level of fine is 17.5 million, or 4% of our total worldwide annual turnover. Not that I'm saying that we're in the position to be fined, because we aren't, but that's what powers they have.
Well, 17.5 million is a lot of angel centres, isn't it? I've got a question about the source, the originators of the requests. Are we seeing a disproportionate number of additional requests coming from media outlets like newspapers and the journalists and that kind of thing? And I've got the impression from elsewhere that there's an increase in these kind of data harvesting requests, really, from a new political party which has got kind of a tealy kind of view to it. Are any particular parties submitting a disproportionate amount of requests for these?
It's hard to say, is the honest answer, because there are certain websites where you can submit requests without anybody knowing who you are. What do they know being one? So requests come through there. Journalists won't necessarily tell us they're a journalist when they make the request. You can probably have a educated guess that some of them are journalists. And sometimes you find out that the same request has gone to every authority. So that gives you a steer on that. So no particular journalists or newspapers, I would say. We have seen an increase in requests from other statutory undertakers who are coming to us when they're trying to identify the person who they should send their bills to. We're seeing an increase in those. We get requests from the police, often when they've got missing persons, or they're trying to track down whether somebody's in our borough that they're looking to speak to. Often it's more often than not, it's missing persons.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to add to that, we do get a huge number of requests from businesses, touting for business in effect. So they're looking to find out information about when a contract's coming up for renewal, which is legitimate. They're able to do that, but that's, often, I know IT get a tremendous amount, but so do I from a buildings point of view as well. And sometimes they can be asking for huge amounts of data, which do take an awful long time to collate. And unfortunately, that at the other end, it's a business just looking for potential opportunities, even though vast majority of the time we post opportunities on online portals, etc. So that is a big number that officers have to do.
Joanna Cope.
Hi there, just a quick one. I wondered whether we are seeing any other local authorities that have kind of cracked how to do it more cheaply and effectively, and whether there's anything we can learn from them. I know, obviously, we've already mentioned AI this evening, and obviously we're not be able to use open source AI with data like this, but I just wonder, is there anything coming up that you think will make it easier, either expertise from other councils or local authorities, or AI? Thank you.
In terms of other councils, I think our experience is that we're probably a bit of an outlier now in not having a dedicated officer dealing with it. I think that's the fundamental difference that I've observed, and I think that's why we're looking for your thoughts tonight, really, on that, because what's happening is we are, by devolving it to each individual service, we're placing an additional burden on officers who aren't necessarily experts in FOI, and the more complicated they become, the harder they become to deal with, and that increases the risks. And there are a few of us in the organisation who have probably got a bit more expertise in it than others, but actually we could do with somebody who does this full time, is the honest truth. So that's one thing about where we differ to other authorities. AI, I would hope in time AI can do some of this for us. We were just at the beginning of that journey really with AI, but definitely opportunities in due course for AI to become more involved in freedom of information work. I have come across it once when we had a particularly voluminous request, and there are tools you can purchase. Obviously, there's a cost for doing this that can filter through your documentation that you held out on email very, very quickly and pull out duplicates and so forth. But there's quite a cost for that at the moment, but hopefully that will come down and help us in the future.
Yeah.
Sorry, just building on that, I completely agree. I think having a centre of expertise and management of this is really important, because that's your first phase, isn't it? Working out if it's a reasonable request and we have to fulfil it. But I just wanted to caution that back into the sort of the vertical units, you're going to have the people that understand the data really well. So whilst having this information officer will help us to manage and filter, there will still be a burden on the group that really understand the data. Sorry, so that was all. Support it. I think it's good.
Just to agree, that's absolutely right. There will still be a necessity for officers in services to become involved in information rights work, because they are the services that hold the data in question. So there will still be a burden on them, but hopefully that would be relieved if we had somebody controlling it from the centre who is able to distort all of the services.
Super.
Can you not charge people for that service? I'm just thinking, I'm sure I was on the KCC website today filtering around, and I'm sure I saw something like that, but I might be wrong.
In relation to FOI, the answer is if it's going to take more than 18 hours of our time, we can either refuse to deal with the request or charge for it. We don't get that many of those. And what we tend to do is help them to bring it down to within 18 hours, but still quite a lot of time, 18 hours, still one request. So FOI, that's how that operates. Environmental information regulations, not really. And the rules are slightly different for EIR. And I can't recall ever charging for one of those from memory. And subject access requests, no, we can't charge for those either.
Right, got no more. Oh, David Thorney, what?
Yes, I have from time to time used freedom of information requests on the county council, and I've always found the officers that they're helpful. But do we know, are they doing better than us?
I'm afraid I don't know what their performance stats are at the moment. I could find out and get back to you. Okay.
Got no more speakers, so recommendations on page 85. A is to note the contents of the report. B is to indicate whether you wish to give support to a review of resources for the management of information requests. It goes on. Can I suggest that that's done, and subject to any proposals for additional resources being reported to approved by General Purposes Committee full council. And I have a seconder for that. Right, Dennis King, and everyone's agreed, haven't they? Good. Thank you. Right, so on to matters for information. Record of decisions taken by the executive. There weren't very many this time. Anyone got any comments on those? No. The work programme is on page 114. No, 111. Any comments on that? Any extras anyone wants to put on? No. Do let me know if you want anything on the work programme, because we can always include it eventually. And I don't think there are any urgent items. Nothing more to be considered in private. I declare the meeting closed at 9:46. Thank you for your attendance and good debate.